casas and where people stay, the hostels and the price differences, and it might be even the comfort level and stuff like that, and what they provide?
Sure. So obviously most travelers would be used to hostels. Cuba works a little bit differently, where hostels are not so common. In a city like Havana, we're obviously lucky enough to find Hamel House, which is a hostel. But generally speaking, in the smaller the town, the less likely you're going to find a hostel. So the way that it works here is there's casa particulars, which is basically someone's home and they have a room or maybe 2 rooms, maybe 3 rooms, or maybe they have a whole dorm back there that they rent out. So there's a little sign, it's like a little blue sign that you look for, and that represents that it's a casa particular. If it has that blue sign, you have the right to knock on the door and see if they've got room available. So because you're renting out a room, it can be a little bit difficult if you're traveling by yourself, because if the room has 3 beds in it and you're traveling and you're by yourself, you will pay for the room for yourself. So, you know, Cuba's definitely doable on your own, but price-wise it will work out cheaper if you're traveling with other people, even people that you've met along the way. Or you might get lucky and, you know, you might arrive at a casa and there might be 2 other people in a room, and then when you arrive, the price gets split between 3 people. So Cuba's the kind of place where a lot of people know a lot of people in all different towns. So, you know, if you start off in Havana, you can ask the people in Havana that you're staying with, hey, I'm going to Trinidad, do you know anyone in Trinidad? And they can write you down an address, or they can give you the phone number, or maybe they'll call and reserve it for you. But as I said, you're basically renting the room. So, you know, if you wanted, I guess, I don't see why it would be a problem, but if you squished, you know, 6 people into 1 bed, if you're happy to do that, you're going to split the price between 6 people rather than 1 person. It is very easy to find other travelers in Cuba because we tend to stick out a lot. So if you do know that you're traveling alone, maybe like on the bus, or if you're getting a taxi between the towns, maybe you want to talk to the people that you're traveling with. Just say, hey, have you got accommodation? If not, let's stay at the same casa, sleep together, and then go off and do your own thing. That's another thing about transportation between different towns. There are bus services. I think the main one here is Via Azul. But if you go to a bus station, there will be taxis out the front of the bus station asking where you're going. And the taxis will cost the exact same price as a bus, but it'll just cut down the timing so much. So when we went from Havana to Trinidad on the bus, it can be between 6 and 7 hours. We got to the bus station. There was another couple from England. They said, hey, where are you going? We said Trinidad. They said, so we jump in our taxi, pay exactly the same price, but the taxi goes direct, and we were there in about 4.5 hours. I guess the other good thing with the taxi is if you want to go to the toilet, you say, hey, taxi driver, stop. Or if you're hungry, you tell them to stop. If you want a cigarette, you tell them to stop. And it's, you know, your personal car service, and it's exactly the same as the bus, but a lot quicker.
How much was that?
Exactly the same as the bus.
How many cook?
Between Havana to Trinidad it was 25, and then we got a taxi from Trinidad to Viñales, and I think that was 40 each. And then we got lucky coming back from Viñales to Havana because we actually were hitchhiking, and we hitchhiked to the beach. And then when we were coming back from the beach the day before we left Viñales, we hitchhiked back, and we were with this French couple who had rented a car. They asked us what our plans were for the next day. We had the exact same plans to stop at a place called Las Terrazas for the afternoon and then end up in Havana. They had the exact same plan, so we got super lucky, and we hitchhiked with them all the way back. So I don't know the price from Viñales to Havana, but I'm fairly certain it's about 15 cook for that.
Can you talk about the food and different kind of foods and stuff like that? And
well, there's a lot of street food. So street food is, you know, there's a lot of hot dogs. There's a lot of hamburgers. I think the main thing you'll find is pizza, and you know, it's the Cuban style pizza. So it's a really thick bread with a lot of cheese, a lot of grease, and those kinds of foods you'll find that you pay in Nacional. I guess a typical Cuban dinner will be pork, rice, beans, And they have a lot of like root vegetables, so things like yams. And I guess in a place like Cuba, depending when you come, you know, it depends on the season and what they have available at the time, but you know, it'll always be vegetables, or you know, a little salad with just like some lettuce and tomato, a bit of onion. Obviously the big drink here is rum, so everywhere you go there'll be mojitos and Cuba Libres. But it's easy to find. There's a lot of places, because it is such a touristy place, and a lot of their income for Cuba comes from tourism. So there's a lot of bars that will have, you know, full cocktail menus of basically anything you would find at home. So even things like Bloody Marys, gin and tonics, you know, screwdrivers. You know, if you're really craving something, you will find it. Especially in a big city like Havana. I guess once you get to the smaller cities, it's going to be a little bit harder to find. I guess the big places where people go dancing, obviously salsa dancing. In almost every town there'll be something called the Casa de la Musica, which will be like the one place, or in Havana there's 3 Casa de la Musicas. It'll be the one place where it's full of Cubans, full of tourists, full of dancing, usually live music, really good atmosphere, reasonably priced drinks. If you can, try and maybe go with a group of Cubans and try and look Cuban, because there is a price difference for the entry. So for the one in Havana, the Casa de la Musica here, for tourists it's 10 kuk to enter. For the Cubans they pay, I think it's 50 nacional, so 50 national is the entrance. So if you can kind of sneak in with a group of Cubans, and instead of paying 10 kuk, you'll be paying less than 50 cents to enter and have the same experience. If not, I would recommend that you go anyway, because it's worth the 10 kuk, because it's such a Cuban experience that you get to have.